Hello, this is Eastern Europe Review, the joint production of BELSAT TV and TVP World, with reports and analysis from Belarus, Russia and Ukraine. I am Sergei BELSAT, and these are the stories. The Lukashenka regime servicemen responsible for repression secure employment in the European Union.
The regime can use such people to carry out intelligence and provocation activities.
How Russian prisoners of war live in Ukraine while waiting for exchange for Ukrainians imprisoned in Russia.
They're from Ukraine, we're from Russia. We should be exchanged and go home, all of us.
Russian Orthodox Church strong support for the war against Ukraine and a spectacular prayer campaign.
The Lord is with us.
They faithfully served the regime of Alexander Lukashenko in Belarus, participating in repressive actions against society. Today, they find themselves in the European Union. The BELPOL Association, an independent democratic initiative operating in Poland, in its latest investigation, has exposed several former high-ranking Lukashenko officials. They were involved in the persecution of protesters in 2020 and have since retired to work abroad. The question arises, what roles are Belarusian security forces now playing within the European Union?
Employees of the law enforcement authorities in Belarus are leaving their positions within the Lukashenko regime and finding employment in countries within the European Union. This investigation was conducted by the Association of Former Belarusian Security Officials, known as BELPOL.
They believe that 3 years is enough for Belarusians to forget about the crimes committed by the servants of the regime, or they suppose that their involvement in committing these crimes won't be established and proven. That's why punishers continue to enter the territory of the European Union without hindrance.
BELPOL reports at least a few such cases. Dmitry Skorobahaty was the deputy head of the police of the Central Police Department in Homel. In June 2020, he oversaw the detention of people in the city, and today he works as a truck driver in the European Union. The head of the drug control and anti-trafficking department of the same police station, Oleg Pokuts, took part in suppressing protests in Homel in August 2020. Today, he is training to be a truck driver in the European Union. Dmitry Grasevich was the head of the Department of Drug Control and Combating Human Trafficking of one of the police stations in Horodna. He is known for beating detainees in its building. Now he's on the territory of the EU.
The main purpose of their stay in the European Union is earnings. For police officers, there is only one possibility to leave the country and earn good money: to work as a truck driver.
However, former Lukashenko security forces can seek employment which aligns with their core qualifications in the European Union.
The regime can use such people to carry out intelligence and provocation activities, as well as to collect information about Belarusians who were forced to leave their homeland.
As revealed by the BELPOL investigation, several employees from the law enforcement authorities are not currently employed in the European Union, but they have permission to enter the EU.
We are constantly preparing proposals to include in the sanction lists people related to crimes committed on the territory of Belarus, both at the level of the European Union and at the level of governments. It's quite painstaking work, but there are also informal limits. For example, the European Union isn't ready to include hundreds of individuals in the sanction lists.
The BELPOL Association believes it's important to monitor the arrival of former security personnel who were involved in repressive actions against Belarusians.
If the democratic forces can come to an agreement with the European Union countries that they carry out some kind of verification, for example, through our team, then we'll be able to understand who is entering the European Union.
Pavel Latushka suggests that there is an alternative solution to this issue.
The best solution would be for Belarusians to inform us, lawyers and human rights organizations, that there are persons suspected of committing crimes on the territory of their countries.
Under such circumstances, authorities in European Union countries could potentially pursue legal action against such people through the concept of universal jurisdiction.
During the ongoing war, Ukraine and Russia have conducted 48 exchanges of prisoners. These exchanges have taken place since Russian troops launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. At the same time, there remain several hundred Russian prisoners of war held in Ukrainian captivity. Many of them are located in a prisoner of war camp situated in the western regions of Ukraine.
I've eaten a cutlet. Here, I've just had soup for breakfast. Cutlets, cutlets, cutlets. I like cutlets. I could eat and eat. That's right, yes.
Alexander and Sergei have just returned from lunch. In high spirits, they begin assembling garden furniture. Sergei mentions that this activity might become his future business after he returns to Russia.
This is where I learned it. Weaving wicker chairs is interesting. Maybe not for everyone, but it's interesting for me. I've been practicing. I don't work well with one hand, but I manage. I could do it when I'm back in the civilian world. Why not? I mean, working for myself.
Sergei served under contract in the Akhmat unit. He was captured by Ukrainians near Bakhmut in July of this year. During the battle, as Ukrainian soldiers stormed their positions, Sergei sustained a gunshot wound. He received medical care and was subsequently evacuated to Kharkiv and then Kiev, and finally to a prisoner of war camp in western Ukraine. Back in Rostov, Sergei's mother and girlfriend anxiously await his return.
If I were her, I'd wait. I'm coming back anyway.
Prior to the invasion, Alexander got married and made the decision to go to Ukraine immediately.
I got married before the beginning of the war, and my wife has been waiting for me for a year and a half. I still can't get home. I don't understand what's happening in my life and how things will turn out in the future. It's still unclear.
Alexander has been in captivity for 4 months. Before that, he served for a year under contract at the front with the 72nd Brigade of the Russian Army. Now his heart is set on returning home.
We Russians, we will go home. The thing is, their guys want to go home too. They've been sitting there for a long time, and we want to go home. They're from Ukraine, we're from Russia. We should be exchanged and go home, all of us.
Some have been waiting for an exchange for a month, others for 4 months, and some even for a year and a half. Sergei Galkin, who was captured in the Chernihiv region in February 2022, was one of the first Russian prisoners of war transferred to a POW camp. He mentions that everyone who went into captivity with him is already back home.
When you're in such a situation and a large number of exchange people are leaving before your eyes, it's very hard morally. You have to be patient and you have to wait. I used to keep statistics as if for myself, but then I got a bit confused. Overall, there have been more than 50 exchanges since last year.
Prisoners of war waiting for exchange include not only those who are physically healthy, but also those with various degrees of trauma. Here in the sanctuary, more than 36 of them receive care from doctors. One of them is Artur, a 46-year-old from Bryansk. Despite his facial injury, he agreed to speak with our film crew. Such injuries are common in military conflicts, but we are unable to display them openly.
I have to have an operation. I need to have implants put in my jaw. I don't have a jaw.
The coordination headquarters for the treatment of prisoners of war has confirmed that the camp also accommodates Russian servicemen who voluntarily surrendered under their I Want to Live program. The Ukrainian side cannot publicly disclose their data as they face prison sentences in Russia.
For the sake of the safety of these people, we stick to our promises. We formalize them as those taken prisoner in battle. Therefore, we don't advertise the number or who exactly is here. When these people show willingness, and most want to return to their families, there'll be no barriers for them.
While waiting for the upcoming exchange, camp residents engage in activities like making furniture and cooking food. The camp administration helps them organize their daily lives. In the kitchen, utensils like knives and can openers are secured with strings. Each day in the camp closely resembles the previous one, waking up, eating, participating in labor therapy, and then sleeping. Prisoners of war receive a fixed monthly sum of around $10 in their bank accounts. They have the opportunity to spend this money at the local grocery store, where hygiene items, soft drinks, and sweets are among the most popular purchases according to the POWs.
In Russia, a campaign has been organized to pray for divine assistance in the ongoing war against Ukraine. During the initiative, believers venerate fragments of the relics of Saint George the Victorious, a revered figure in the Orthodox Church, considered the patron saint of warriors. Additionally, priests lead prayer services that express support for aggression against Ukraine. Observers suggest that this initiative may be a part of Vladimir Putin's unannounced election campaign for his fifth presidential term, as elections in Russia are scheduled for next spring.
Orthodox believers are queuing up to venerate the relics of Saint George the Victorious, deeply revered in their faith. These relics are currently on display at the main Orthodox cathedral in Saratov. The church relic, originally from the Holy Trinity Sergius Lavra in Sergiev Posad, has embarked on a tour of numerous Russian cities. Its purpose is for Russians to collectively pray for victory in the ongoing war against Ukraine. During their sermons, some priests refer to Ukrainians as enemies and invoke higher powers to aid in their destruction.
I'm going there now, and I believe that St. George the Victorious will help me to cope with enemies.
The cult of Saint George the Victorious has its root in early Christianity. The saint was credited with one of the most famous miracles of faith, the slaying of a dragon symbolizing the devil with a spear. The Russian Orthodox Church draws parallels between this story and current events, suggesting that the countries of the West and the United States are seen as symbolic representatives of Satan, intent on destroying Russia.
This war is spiritual. What's going on with gay European culture? What are their values and what are ours? What kind of confrontation is going on, good and evil? That's why we come to ask the Lord for victory, for a gift.
Many Orthodox believers who come to venerate the relics believe that the murders committed by mercenaries and contract soldiers of the Russian army on Ukrainian territory are turning into a God-pleasing deed. This was also the narrative of a sermon by Russian Patriarch Kirill, the initiator of the so-called All-Russian Victory Prayer Service. The Russian Orthodox Church has supported the Kremlin's decision to start the war since the beginning.
Those who are driven by envy and the desire to eliminate an alternative path of civilizational development that is attractive to many people are eager, of course, to do everything to ensure that Russia is defeated. But this will not happen, because the Lord is with us.
The relics of the saint will travel to 90 major Russian cities. They have previously visited occupied Ukrainian territories. Additionally, the relics were taken to all dioceses of Belarus with the assistance of the Russian Orthodox Church Commission on Pilgrimage Development. Some parishioners have expressed their disappointment that the level of interest in the relics could have been higher.
There aren't enough young people, that's what's bad. I see either very old or very young people. There are children walking around, but there aren't enough middle-aged people.
The older generation constitutes Vladimir Putin's most loyal electorate, and it is this demographic that is the primary target of the All-Russian Church tour. Independent observers have already dubbed it the de facto start of the presidential election campaign. According to media reports from the Russian presidential administration, Vladimir Putin is set to run for re-election under the banner of what's been termed spiritual staples. The central theme of this campaign portrays Russia as a distinct civilization, a family of families, and suggests that despite being under attack, its enemies will achieve nothing thanks to the consolidation of society. It is expected that the incumbent Russian president will officially announce his participation in the 2024 elections in approximately a month, during early November. Meanwhile, an increasing number of faiths are becoming involved in mobilizing the electorate. Russia's supreme shaman has recently conducted a ritual in support of the war, during which he labeled Zelensky as an enemy of Ukraine. He also called on the West to capitulate to Putin.
These are all our stories for you today. Thank you for watching Eastern Europe Review. Please continue to stay with TVP World and stand with Ukraine.